Who is your real life hero? What did they do for you? A few weeks ago a woman gave my 8-year-old son the Heimlich. Mr. Rogers. My parents were both diagnosed with cancer, brain cancer, breast cancer, within 30 days of each other. When I was a kid, we didn't have family in the area to look after my sister and I. My parents were too sick to take care of me, and they both had to take medications for years on and off with devastating depression side effects. So anyway, I would just sit down in front of the TV and watch Mr. Rogers. I love my parents, but the truth is he was the only adult in my life who was always there for me. Always. Edit. Coins. Gold coins. My father-in-law accepted me into his very conservative traditional family, even though at the time I didn't have a job, had no savings to speak of, and came from a different country to live under his roof with no real plan. It took me several years to get on my feet, and he never did or said a single thing to make me feel unwelcome or small, even though he could have easily done so. He celebrated all of my small successes and helped us out financially at key moments, even though he was not at all wealthy. He did this because he trusted his daughter's choice, even though in our culture marriages are usually arranged and a woman's opinion counts for less than a man's. And also, I like to think, because I worked really hard to make a good impression on him and let him know how grateful I am. He's a good guy and has taught me a lot. Edit. Holy shit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. My brother. He broke his neck in 80, same as Reeve, at 16. I watched as my mother and a complete stranger pull him from the ocean and bring him back to life. Doctors said he would never make it past 20, then 25, then 30. Fucker lived to be 53. Through all of it, never complained, never said, I want to die. Had the best sense of humor and lived life to the fullest. Bro, a couple of weeks before he passed. Bro, a couple of days before he broke his neck. Love ya brother. Edited. A random dude I met at a mall. I was 15 years old and had just started my first part-time job. During my lunch break I was sitting on a bench texting my friend when this old man suddenly put his hand on my thigh and started stroking me. I yelled "Stop touching me" and immediately got up. I felt scared, alone and incredibly vulnerable. Only one person reacted. He came over and asked me if everything was okay. I was shaking and just said that I had to get back to work. He then offered to follow me so that I wouldn't have to walk by myself. He made me feel somewhat safe in a very scary situation. So yeah, that dude is my hero. My stepdad. When I was a child, I had an asthma attack and went to hospital. I was kept in overnight, but I was too scared to sleep. He climbed into the bed with me and held me until I fell asleep. He always made me feel safe. He came into my life when I was a 1-year-old and couldn't have loved me, my brother, or my mother more. He was the kind of man who would do anything for anyone and came to my rescue more times than I can count. He's who I want to be when I'm older. He died from cancer 2 days ago. The world without him seems impossible, but because of him, I'm not scared. No, I'm not scared of anything anymore. See you in the next one, Pop. Love you. Thank you for the gold, kind stranger. Another one. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for the comments. Love to all. My dad. My biological father took off when I was young. When my mother met and married my dad, he treated me great, never tried to push himself on me. In 3rd grade, I asked him to adopt me. Since we didn't have a lot of money, he worked 2 to 3 jobs at a time so they could afford it. He reminds me always that he loves me and has almost punched a few lousy relatives who called me his stepson. He corrects them very quickly that I'm in fact his son. I'm very proud of him and hope to become the type of man he is. Edit. Pinched to punched. My grandfather. He taught me strength, kindness and humility. I wouldn't be half the person I'm today without him. He passed away 2 weeks ago and something just feels missing in the universe. My grandpa, mom's dad. A former police officer who gave me all the father and son happy memories my father refused to give because he was never home. Later we discovered my father had a second family. abandoned us and never returned. With my grandpa I learned how to shave, ride a bicycle, drive a car, basic car and home maintenance, drive a tractor, defend myself in a fight, firearm handling and safety, fishing, camping, woodworking, first aid, basic electronics, etc. I had my first beer with him, and he was the first person who met my first girlfriend when I was 15. On his last week with us, he called his lawyer to do the paperwork and gave me his car, a 1974 cherry red VW Beetle. I still have it. Myself. I used to be a homeless, carless, unemployed high school graduate. Now I'm a home winner, albeit with a mortgage, own my vehicle outright, work full time in my field, and I have an AAs, a BS, and an manuscript. My dad. In one summer he had 2 pregnant teens, me one of them. My brother had brain surgery from being hit in the head with a golf club, and he had his first heart attack. Never once did I feel stressed, because he just kept it together so well. IDK now looking back on it how he did it. I had a teacher in high school who was a quadriplegic. He was injured when I was in 9th grade and came back to school when I was in 11th grade. The fortitude it must have taken for him to repair his life after a catastrophic injury and come back to teaching astounds me. He is still an inspiration for me to this day and he will forever have my deepest admiration. My mom. She looks after my 92-year-old grandmother who has severe Alzheimer's by herself. That, plus a hectic job, she only just recently retired, managing a household, as well as looking after an elderly neighbor who lives alone. Mom checks in on her every day, and brings her over for meals, if she's feeling lonely, or takes her to church. Plus she volunteers every now and then with an animal charity, transporting dogs to their vet appointments. Despite all of these stresses, she's still very optimistic and selfless, saying that if she can help anyone, she is willing to. My heart surgeon who saved my life when I wasn't even a month old. My foster dad. He took me in when he didn't have to, and he showed me kindness that I'd never seen before. The first thing he did was buy me a new baseball glove and play catch with me. The one I had was used and in poor shape. He did so much for, and I'll forever be grateful. My mom, she raised me all alone, and I love her so. Fuck my dad, he never even bothered to meet me. Suhu. Kindergarten gym teacher. My dad passed away when I was a baby. It was Father's Day and our teacher made everyone make cards for their father. I didn't have one, so I made one for my gym teacher. For some reason I looked up to him. Anyway, my teacher called him up to my class so I can give it to him. He came up with a packet of Lay's chips and a bucket of sidewalk chalk as a gift for me. He was notoriously known for always eating Lay's chips. He probably doesn't remember it, but years later I still do, and it meant the world to me. I'm not sure if he's still alive, since he was really old, but I think about him a lot. My 3rd grade teacher Mr. Trexler, who told me I'm capable of doing anything I put my heart in. My HS principal. I performed stand-up comedy at our school talent shows. Anyways, the black guys from Auto Shop would always straddle in tardy, so I got pissed, tossed them a fake set of car keys, and joked, "Make yourself at home, boys, and change some oil." She takes 10W30 and rotate her tires while you're at it, but I better still have my rims when you're done. The principal cancelled the rest of my act before a race riot developed and schooled me on the rules of comedy in his office after the show. He is my hero for explaining there is no irony in racism, and that a proper comedian always punches up and never down during his act. My mother and father-in-law, they are more parents to me than my biological parents ever will. After I was essentially kicked out of my family at 13, they took me in, and I ended up marrying one of their daughters who was, and still is, my best friend. I've had a lot of great teachers, and one in particular, my high school art teacher, bought me a small Wacom tablet with his own money after seeing my passion for digital art. He delivered it to my house one night and asked my parents and I not to let any other students know that he'd played favorites. Now as 30, I'm making a great living as a digital artist. My grandfather. I had a deadbeat dad who walked out of my life and hasn't tried to be a part of it since my parents got divorced, so I had to learn how to be a man through him. My 11th grade English teacher. He recognized my love for the subject and made me feel validated. Him doing a major in English partly because of him, and him in school to become a teacher. Thanks Mr. S. My mom was the strongest person I ever knew, and she made me into what I'm now. She died a year ago yesterday, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her and how much I wish I could tell her. Let me tell you the story of a hero of mine. She's just a lady, but wow does she shine. To university I applied, and I got a spot, but the thousands for fees. I had not. Scholarships were few, they didn't care to know the potential I had, or the places I'd go. Until that week before term the bursar called me, and I had to explain my lack of money. This lady stepped in, star that she is the truth she told, which I still reminisce. A policeman wrote the affidavit we needed to the bursar, it went. And for funding, I no longer pleaded. A week later I was a student participating in class and never playing truant. 3 years later saw me get my degree, and it all was because of my granny. My parents, everything. My dog. She has saved me from suicide 2 times now. I ended up on the bridge ready to jump, and she was the only reason I didn't. One of the times, I had called family with no answer, been hung up on the suicide crisis line, and then transferred to a voicemail on a second crisis line. My roommate was emotionally and mentally abusive to me, and encouraging me to commit suicide after a bad reaction to medication. She started beating my dog as well, and that is the only reason I left the hated place. Then my sister is just as mentally abusive. My brother has tried to strangle me several times, and my parents always say I deserve to be treated that way by both of them. I almost went to the nearest bridge, but I had to stay and take care of puppy. One of my professors from my master's program. I went for Master of Science in UK, and one of the courses required advanced level knowledge of a software called MATLAB. I did not get proper basic knowledge of the software during my undergrad, and was sure to fail the course. I went to my professor, and told him that I'm not good with the software. He took 2 hours every week to teach me MATLAB, even though he was no way obligated to do so. As a result, I aced the course, aced my master's program, taught it well to my students. When I got back to my home country and a year later, got a fully funded PhD offer with scholarship in Canada, because of my MATLAB skill. I only hope I can do the same for my students someday. Myself. I consider myself my own hero. Being able to survive this far whilst having abusive parents who neglected me since day one, and siblings who made me hate my life, moving out when I was 15 to get away from them, handling myself and getting a decently paying job, getting into a good college, and paying my tuition, being regarded one of the best people to work with by my peers, customers, and managers back at my old workplace. I'm glad I'm still going regardless of pretty much everything scarring me from birth until this day. My husband. We'd been dating for 3 weeks when my insane family threw me out of the house for having a seizure. He took me in, supported, and cared for me, even when it looked like I was going to die, and was totally housebound being fed through a tube. I miraculously recovered, and it's been 10-ish years since we met. He really is my hero and best friend. I only hope I'm as amazing of a partner to him as has been to me. When I was a teen, my mom made us go to therapy cause we didn't get along. The therapist heard both our sides and turns to my mother and says, "You have a very dictator style of parenting," and suggests that she loosened up on her unreasonable rules. In the car, my mother laughs and says we would never see that therapist again. We never saw any therapists ever again, and our relationship has deteriorated. But what that therapist did was reassure me that I wasn't just a crazy angsty teen. I realized that I just needed to lay low until I could get out to the house, and I'm better for it now. My father-in-law. He came here as a refugee, and when he became financially comfortable, he didn't get greedy, he got generous. He regularly volunteers in the community and helps other people. He treats me like one of his kids. He does not feel bitter or dwell on people who have taken advantage of his kindness, and doesn't let the few bad apples stop him from helping people. I wish I could be half as good a person as he is. I have no idea how he isn't jaded. This might sound super cheesy, but whatever my girlfriend, she's been there for me when nobody else has been, and has even saved my life a few times. Every second I spend with her is the best second of my life, and she's my idol, through and through. There's many people, for many reasons, but one would be my grandpa. Blood one walked out on my grandmother and this man came in, and took care of her, and raised both her children, and adored grandchildren. I honestly don't think anyone loved me, or ever will love me more, than my grandpa did. Pure delight he was. Sister saved my mother's life when she got partially decapitated.